I never believed in fate, not really. But that night, as rain poured down in silver sheets and the scent of gasoline mixed with blood and roses filled the air, something inside me shifted forever. My heels clicked against the wet cobblestones of Via de Luca, each step echoing louder than the last. I shouldn't have been out alone. I knew that. Every sign said to stay home, news reports, whispered warnings, even my own gut. But I was stubborn, and more than anything, I needed air, distance, freedom. The city was a blur of red lights and shuttered windows, the kind that looked like eyes watching, judging. I clutched my coat tighter around me as the cold bit into my skin. My fingers were numb, but my mind was buzzing. It wasn't just the cold. I had made a mistake, and I knew it the second I turned onto that alley. There were 3 of them, waiting. Shadows at first, then shapes, then faces. All of them hungry. Well, well, one said, grinning as he stepped into the light. His breath fogged in the chill, and his knife gleamed like a warning. A little lost bird. Looking for trouble? I'm not looking for anything, I said, steady but soft. My voice didn't shake, thank God. I'd learned to fake strength even when it cracked inside me. Too bad. 'Cause trouble found you, another one muttered, circling me like a vulture. They thought I was prey. I didn't scream. There was no one to hear me, and screaming would have made me feel powerless. Instead, I backed away slowly, eyes darting, searching for anything. A door, a soul, a miracle. Then it happened. That voice. Don't. Touch. Her. It didn't come like thunder. It was thunder. The kind that stopped your heart mid-beat. The kind that made the world pause. The street fell silent. Even the rain seemed to hesitate. The 3 men froze, their heads snapping toward the voice, and I turned too, slowly, not breathing. He stood at the mouth of the alley like something carved out of night, tall, soaked in black from his coat to his boots. His hair was slicked back from the rain, dark and wet, and his jaw clenched like it was holding back a storm. Eyes like fire, cold, lethal fire, burned straight through the men and into me. The one with the knife laughed nervously. Hey man, You've got 3 seconds, he said quietly. Almost too quiet, and that made it worse. Who the hell do you think you... 1. I didn't see a gun, but I knew he didn't need one. He didn't flinch, didn't blink. His presence was the weapon. They ran before he got to 2, just scattered like rats. One even slipped and fell, scrambling to his feet as if death itself chased him. I stood there, shaking. My hands trembled at my sides, not because I was cold, but because something deep inside me had cracked wide open. Fear, relief, confusion, all of it tangled together, and he walked toward me. Not fast, not slow, just enough to keep my breath caught in my chest. Are you hurt? He asked. His voice had softened, but it still held power. Like velvet over steel. I shook my head. No, just shaken, he nodded once. His eyes scanned me, like he didn't quite believe me, like he was looking for wounds I hadn't noticed. I'll walk you home, he said. I hesitated. I don't even know your name. He gave a faint smirk, and for the first time, something in his face softened. You don't want to know my name? That sounds like a line, I said, my voice steadier now. It's not, he replied. It's a warning, and somehow, that didn't scare me, not in the way it should have. We started walking side by side. He didn't speak, and I didn't ask questions. The city around us stayed silent, watching. I could feel the weight of something shifting, like the night had changed. Because of him, I stole a glance at his profile, sharp, controlled, tragic. Something told me that man had broken hearts and bones in equal measure, and something deeper told me that whatever had just started between us wasn't going to end simply. We walked in silence, our footsteps the only sound against the rain-slick street. He kept a measured distance, close enough to shield me, but far enough that I could feel his restraint. Like he didn't trust himself to get any nearer. The city around us breathed danger. It always had. But with him beside me, it was like the shadows parted just a little. Not because we were safe, but because he was what the shadows were afraid of. I kept glancing at him out of the corner of my eye. There was a tension in his jaw, a coiled energy in the way he moved. Controlled, dangerous. He wasn't like the usual men I knew. He didn't need to raise his voice or make empty threats. Power clung to him like a second skin. "You're not from this part of town," he said finally, his voice low. I shook my head. "No, I moved here last month. I guess I thought I could handle it." His lip twitched, half amusement, half warning. "This isn't the kind of place you handle." He was right. I hated how right he was. We turned down my street, quieter now, the buzz of the city behind us. I hesitated in front of my building, old and crumbling like everything else in my life. "This is me," I said. He looked up at the rusted fire escapes, the busted intercom, then back at me. "You live alone?" "Yes." He stared at me a second too long, then nodded once. "Get a lock on the inside of your door, one you can trust. Thanks for the advice, and everything else." He didn't move, just watched me as if trying to decide something important. Then finally, like the weight of the night had gotten heavier on his shoulders, he spoke. "If they come back, or anyone bothers you again, ask for Luca Romano." That name hit me like a shiver down the spine. Luca Romano. Everyone in this city knew that name. Mafia, underworld, ruthless, untouchable, and I'd just spent the last 15 minutes walking beside him, trading sarcasm and staring too long into the eyes of a man who could have someone killed with a phone call. I must have gone pale, because he sighed, low and tired, and looked away. "I told you," he said. "You didn't want to know my name. I should have been afraid. I should have run inside, locked the door, and called a therapist. But all I could feel was this strange, magnetic pull. "You saved me," I whispered. He turned his eyes on me again. That fire in them, it was tired, haunted, but real. "No," he said. "Not yet." Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. I stood there frozen, soaked and shaken, watching him disappear into the night like some myth. That name echoed in my head over and over. Luca Romano. Why would someone like him help someone like me? I wasn't important. I wasn't connected. I wasn't even rich enough to be worth protecting, and yet, he had. Not just protected me. He'd warned them. Like I mattered. I barely slept that night. His voice kept ringing in my ears. The way he said, "Don't touch her," like it wasn't just a command. It was a promise, and somewhere deep in the back of my mind, I felt it click into place. This wasn't the end of whatever had happened tonight. It was the beginning. The next morning, I wore a scarf to hide the bruise on my neck. Just a finger's brush from one of them, light, but it still marked me. I stood behind the counter at the bookstore I worked at, pretending to read the same page for half an hour. I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about him. The way his coat dripped, the way his eyes scanned the street, the way he looked at me like I was already his responsibility. And then it happened. Just before noon, the bell above the shop door rang. I looked up, heart thudding. It wasn't him. It was a man in a suit, clean, expensive, slicked back hair, eyes that smiled but didn't mean it. "Miss Elena Carter?" he asked polite. Yes?" He reached into his jacket, and for a second I thought he might pull a gun. But instead, he handed me a sleek black envelope. "This is from Mr. Romano," he said. "He asked that you open it in private, and that you remember he keeps his promises." Before I could say anything, he turned and left. Not a glance back. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal. Inside was a single note, written in dark ink. "They won't touch you again. But this city has teeth. If you're going to survive, you need someone who knows how to bite back." LR underneath it was a silver key. I stared at it, cold and heavy in my palm. And in that moment, I knew. Luca Romano hadn't just stepped into my life. He was pulling me into his. The key haunted me all day. It sat inside my coat pocket, heavier than it looked. I felt it every time I moved, like a secret pressed against my skin. Cold, intrusive, dangerous. I didn't know what it opened, but I knew it wasn't just a door. By the time my shift ended, the city had swallowed the sun again. The streets outside the bookstore were quieter than usual. Too quiet. Even the corner drunks had vanished. I hesitated at the door, heart pounding. And then I saw it. A car. Not just a car. A black Maserati, parked at the curb like it had every right to be there, which apparently it did. The same man from earlier stepped out, still crisp and composed. "Miss Carter," he said with a small nod, holding the rear door open like I was royalty. "Mr. Romano would like a word," I blinked. "He sent you?" He gave a slight smile. He doesn't usually ask twice. I should have said no. I should have told him to go to hell and marched home to eat instant noodles and pretend my life was normal. But something inside me, something reckless, maybe stupid, nudged me forward. I slid into the back seat. The smell inside the car was rich leather and faint cologne. Clean, controlled. Like the man I knew would be waiting for me. The ride was silent. No questions, no words. When we stopped, the driver got out and opened the door. I stepped into a different world. It wasn't a mansion exactly, more like a fortress pretending to be a penthouse. Towering glass windows, iron gates, guards with no visible weapons but eyes that saw everything. A place built for someone who trusted no one. The elevator opened directly into the suite, and there he was, Luca Romano, standing at the window like he belonged to the skyline. One hand in his pocket, the other holding a crystal tumbler of something dark. Whiskey, probably, maybe blood. With him, it was hard to tell. "You came," he said without turning. "You didn't really leave me a choice," I replied, trying to sound braver than I felt. He turned slowly, and when his eyes landed on me, it felt like being studied, not by a man, but by something ancient. Something that had seen too much and survived anyway. "I gave you a key," he said, stepping closer. "You didn't ask what it was for, because I didn't want to owe you anything." His smile was small, tired. "You already do." That hit deeper than I expected. Because he was right. I did owe him. For stepping in, for stopping those men, for making sure I walked away from that alley instead of being scraped off it. Still, I crossed my arms. "So what does the key open?" He held out his hand. I pulled the key from my coat pocket and placed it in his palm. He turned, walked to the far wall, and pressed it into a hidden lock I hadn't noticed. There was a quiet click and a panel slid open. Inside was another door. He opened it, and what I saw made my breath catch. It wasn't a room. It was a sanctuary, soft lighting, shelves of books, a fireplace already lit, a velvet chaise beside a tall window overlooking the city, a tray with tea and a note in my handwriting, copied from an old journal I thought I'd lost years ago. "You..." I took a step forward, stunned. "You recreated my old studio. From Brooklyn," he nodded once. "You mentioned it when we were walking." I barely said anything. "You said enough." I turned to him, my heart thudding. Why, he didn't speak at first. Just watched me like he was trying to decide if I could handle the answer. Then, finally, "Because I've done things," he said quietly. "Terrible things. And for a long time I believed I'd never do anything good again. But then I saw you. Alone. Brave. Mouthy. A faint smirk. And I thought maybe saving you could be my one good thing." The silence that followed was thick with something unspoken. "You don't know me," I whispered. "I will." He took a step closer. The fire behind him cast shadows across his face, and I realized then this wasn't about protection, or guilt, or charity. This was about something else. Something fated, something dangerous. "I don't want to be part of your world," I said, but even as I spoke the words, I wasn't sure I believed them. "You already are," he said. "Now the question is, what do we do with that?" And God help me, I didn't have an answer. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the room Luca had made for me, recreated for me, and stared at the fire until the flames blurred into orange ghosts. The books on the shelf, the scent of lavender from the candle on the table, even the blanket draped over the chaise. It was all exactly as I remembered. But that was the terrifying part. How could a man like Luca Romano, a mafia boss feared across the city, know the tiniest, most private details of my life? How could he care? I wanted to be angry. I wanted to feel violated. But the truth was worse than that. I felt seen, like I'd spent years hiding from the world, and he'd peeled back every layer in one silent glance. Around 3 a.m., I wandered out into the main room. The lights were low, city lights flickering outside the massive windows like stars trapped in glass. And there he was. Luca, sitting on the edge of the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like it had whispered something unforgivable to him. He didn't look up when he spoke. Couldn't sleep? No, he nodded. Me neither. I moved closer, cautiously, like I was approaching a lion in the dark. Is it always like this? He looked up, confused. What? Living with ghosts. A flicker passed through his expression. Surprise, maybe even pain. But it vanished too fast to name. Ghosts are easy, he said. It's the living that make things complicated. I sat across from him. Silence stretched between us like a fragile thread. You said I was your one good thing, I said finally. That's a lot of weight to put on a stranger. He smiled faintly. You're not a stranger anymore. That's exactly what scares me. He leaned back, studying me with that unreadable gaze. Do you want me to disappear? I opened my mouth, then closed it. The truth was tangled in my chest. No, I said quietly. But I don't want to lose myself either. He nodded, like he understood more than he let on. You won't. I won't let that happen. Can you promise that? His eyes darkened. I don't make promises I can't keep. We sat in silence again, the air between us heavy with something unspoken. He wasn't just dangerous because of what he did. He was dangerous because of what he felt. He felt deeply, quietly, powerfully. And somehow that was more disarming than any gun he could carry. Why me? I asked softer now. There are 100 women out there who'd beg for your attention. He looked away, jaw tightening. Because they want the mask. The money, the name. You looked at me like I was a man. Just a man. I didn't know who you were. Exactly. His voice was a whisper now. I forgot what that felt like. I looked at him. Truly looked. And saw it. The cracks. He wasn't made of marble or iron like the legends said. He was a man made of memories, regrets, and a million silent wounds. He'd built walls not to keep people out, but to keep himself in, and somehow, I'd slipped through. I should go home tomorrow, I said suddenly. Back to my apartment. I need normal again. He didn't flinch, just nodded. I'll have someone drive you. I didn't ask for protection. He met my gaze steadily. It's not protection. It's insurance. Insurance for what? For my peace of mind. I looked away, overwhelmed by the weight of him, of this, of us, whatever we were becoming. When I finally stood to leave, he didn't follow. Just watched. As I reached the doorway of the room he made for me, I turned back. Luca? Yeah? Do you think this is a mistake? His reply was quiet, honest, raw. Every good thing in my life has started as a mistake. And somehow, that was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to me. The next morning, the driver returned as promised. But when I got back to my apartment, something felt off. The door was ajar. I froze. Slowly, I pushed it open, every nerve in my body screaming. My heart dropped. The place was trashed. Books on the floor, cabinets open, my old journals ripped. Someone had been looking for something. And on the kitchen table, written in red lipstick, were 3 words. Stay away, slut. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I backed out of the apartment. Then my phone buzzed, unknown. Number. You never should have met him. Now you're marked. And suddenly everything made sense. This wasn't about me anymore. This was about him. And I'd just stepped into a war I didn't understand. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The moment I stepped away from the vandalized apartment, I called Luca. I didn't even think. I just moved on instinct. My breath was ragged as the phone rang in my ear, and when his voice finally came through, low and sharp, it nearly broke me. Elena. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Then finally, my apartment. Someone broke in. They trashed it. There's writing on the wall. They know about you. They know about us. There was a pause, but not the kind that meant confusion. No, it was the kind before a man burns a city to the ground. I'm on my way, Luca said. Don't go back inside. Stay where you are. I'll find you. He hung up. And 20 minutes later, 3 black SUVs came roaring down my block like a promise of vengeance. Luca was the first to step out, dressed in a dark coat, his face carved in stone. His eyes swept over me in one agonizing second, and then they changed. Fire. Pure fire. Who the fuck did this? He growled, more to himself than to me. He took one look at the apartment and didn't even go inside. 2 of his men did, silent and efficient. One of them pulled out a phone, snapped pictures of the message on the wall, and nodded grimly at Luca. I'm taking you back with me, he said, already guiding me toward the car. I can't just leave everything like this. He stopped walking. Turned to me slowly. This isn't just about you anymore, he said. You've been marked. That message wasn't a threat, it was a warning. They're not just trying to scare you, Elena. They're trying to punish me through you. Something inside me curled up tight. The weight of his words settled over my chest like a stone. I swallowed hard. Who are they? Luca didn't answer right away, just looked at the ruined building behind me like he wanted to set it on fire. Then he said, the Santarelli family. Even I'd heard that name. Rival, syndicate, brutal, bloodthirsty, known for making people disappear in the daylight. And now apparently they had decided I was leverage. Why me? I asked again, my voice barely audible. I'm not anyone. You're mine, he said. There was no softness in his tone, no hesitation, not even a trace of doubt. And even though fear curled through my stomach like smoke, something else sparked in my chest, a dangerous kind of belonging. Back at his penthouse, things changed. His men were suddenly everywhere, posted at exits, outside my door, even walking the halls. Silent, alert, a fortress disguised as luxury. I was standing by the tall windows when Luca came in. He didn't speak, just walked straight to me, hands slipping gently to my waist, like he needed to make sure I was real. I should have seen this coming, he muttered. They never play fair. You think I'm bait? No, he said, eyes burning into mine. You're my weak spot. They saw it, I let out a bitter laugh. Well, that's romantic. His jaw clenched. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. What was supposed to happen, Luca? I asked, pulling away. Was I just a distraction for you? A pretty face you could save and then forget about? He stepped closer. You really think I forget the people I bleed for? His voice was low, rough, close to breaking. You think I wanted this? He continued. You think I planned for you to walk into my life, talk back to me, make me feel something I haven't felt in 10 fucking years? Elena, you are not a distraction. You're the one thing that makes me feel human. Silence fell between us, and for once, I didn't know what to say. He touched my face, gently, like the world might shatter if he pressed too hard. They've put a target on your back now. That means I have 2 choices. Either push you away to protect you, or pull you closer and prepare for war. I looked up at him, my heart hammering like a drum. And what are you going to choose? His reply was instant. I already chose you. He kissed me. Not soft, not sweet. It was the kind of kiss that set fire to every quiet part of me. It was claiming, raw, and devastating, like he was pouring everything he couldn't say into me. And just like that, I knew whatever peace I had before him was gone. But maybe this kind of chaos was always my destiny. The next few days felt like I was living someone else's life. Armed guards stood at every exit. Luca's men followed me from room to room like ghosts in tailored suits. I wasn't allowed to go anywhere alone, not even to the bathroom without a shadow trailing me. I should have felt like a prisoner, but I didn't. I felt protected, watched over, not in the suffocating way I'd feared, but in a way I didn't know I needed. It was unsettling how fast I got used to it, how quickly I adjusted to Luca's world. And to him. Because Luca wasn't just the man who saved me anymore. He was the man who looked at me like I was something rare, something fragile and dangerous at the same time. One night, I found him alone on the rooftop. He didn't hear me at first, or maybe he did and just didn't say anything. He was standing near the edge, staring out at the lights of the city below, a glass of whiskey in one hand and a loaded silence in the other. "You always brood this late, or am I special?" I asked softly, stepping closer. He didn't smile. "Not yet. I used to come up here when I was younger," he said, "when I wanted to forget what this life made me do." I walked to his side, wrapping my arms around myself against the wind. "What did it make you do?" He looked at me, and for once, he didn't hide. "I buried my brother on this roof." My breath caught. "What?" "Giovanni, my older brother. He died in my arms after an ambush. We were 20 and 23. Still stupid enough to believe honor meant something." "I'm sorry," I whispered. He stared down into the city. I wanted out after that. Swore I'd never be like our father. But someone had to take control. Someone had to protect what was left. "Is that what you're doing now?" I asked. "Protecting me? Or paying for something you couldn't save?" He finally turned to me, and this time his smile was bitter. "Maybe both." I wanted to reach out, to touch his face, to make him feel something other than guilt. But just then the rooftop door swung open. It was Nico, Luca's right-hand man. Young, dangerous, always with a gun under his jacket and a smirk that never quite reached his eyes. "We have a problem," he said. "No pleasantries." Luca didn't blink. "Speak." "The Santarellis just hit one of our supply lines in Little Palermo. 2 men dead, 1 missing." Luca's jaw tightened, the glass in his hand cracking beneath the pressure. Blood trickled from his palm, but he didn't flinch. "And?" Luca asked coldly. "There was a message." Nico pulled out his phone and turned it toward us. It was a photo of me. From 2 days ago, in Luca's penthouse garden, reading by the fountain. Completely unaware, completely exposed. My stomach dropped. Luca took the phone, stared at it, and then handed it back without a word. "I want everything locked down," he said quietly. "No one in or out without my approval." "And the missing man?" Nico asked. "Dead," Luca said without hesitation. "No one survives them unless they're meant to send a message." Then he looked at me, and something in his eyes shifted. Hardened. "I was trying to keep you close," he said. "Now I need to keep you invisible." "I'm not going to hide forever," I said, heart racing. "You won't have to," he replied. "But right now, you're the fuse to a war they're trying to start, and I won't lose you in the explosion." I reached for his hand, the one bleeding, and wrapped his fingers in my scarf. "You won't lose me," I said. "Not if we fight together." He stared at me like he wanted to believe that, like the part of him that had buried too many people was trying to hope again. Then he leaned in, his forehead touching mine. "Then stay close," he whispered. "Because from now on, anyone who wants to hurt you will have to go through me." And I believed him. Not because he was powerful, but because for the first time in his life, Luca Romano had something to lose, and I was it. Luca Romano had something to lose, and I was it. They say every war has a spark. Ours came 2 nights later, wrapped in fire and screams. Luca had barely left the penthouse. I could feel the tension bleeding from his body every time he passed me. Each touch lingering longer, every word tighter, controlled. He didn't sleep, and if he did, it was only in short, haunted bursts. He was spiraling inward, like he was preparing to walk into hell and needed to burn out everything soft inside him before he did. I tried to break through that shell. I tried, but every time I got close, I could feel him shutting doors behind his eyes. That night, the building shook. I was brushing my hair when it happened, a deep, thunderous boom followed by screaming from the lower floors. The lights flickered. Glass shattered somewhere nearby. The explosion knocked pictures from the walls and sent books flying from shelves. The fire alarm screamed into life. And then, gunshots. 3, fast. Then silence. I didn't freeze. I don't know why. Maybe I'd been expecting this deep down. I grabbed my phone, my shoes, and bolted from the bedroom just as two of Luca's men burst in. Move! We're evacuating. Where's Luca? He's already on his way to you, the guard started to say, but then, Alina! Luca's voice. I turned just as he stormed in, wild-eyed and shirtless, wearing only black pants and a holster. He grabbed me, checked me over with his hands like he needed to physically confirm I was whole. His chest heaved like he'd just outrun death. I'm okay, I said. But what the hell is happening? They're here, he growled, pulling me behind him as his men cleared the hallway. The Santarellis breached the garage entrance. That explosion was a distraction. My blood ran cold. Then we need to go. We're not running, he snapped. We're clearing. The elevator was locked down, so we took the stairs, 4 floors down to the secure level. The whole building felt like it was breathing gunpowder. Men in suits moved like shadows, earpieces in, weapons drawn. Luca's army. The air was thick with smoke and tension. Somewhere below, someone was screaming. When we reached the safe corridor, Luca shoved open a steel door and led me into a narrow hallway lit by flickering red lights. At the far end was a vault-like chamber. He opened it with a palm scan. Inside was a steel-plated panic room disguised as a minimalist guest suite. Stay here, he ordered. No. His eyes snapped to mine. Elena, I said no, I said, heart racing but steady. You told me I was yours, that we'd fight together. Don't you dare try to lock me in a box while you go die for me. He stared at me, jaw clenched so tight I thought it might snap. You don't understand what these people are capable of, he said. They'll torture you to get to me. They'll tear you apart just because they can. Then give me a gun. A long, awful silence. Then he reached behind his back and handed me a sleek pistol. Safety's off. Aim for the throat or heart. Don't hesitate. I took it. My hands trembled, but my grip was firm. I'll be back in 10 minutes, he said. If I'm not, you will be. He didn't kiss me. He didn't say goodbye. He just looked at me one last time like he was memorizing my face, then disappeared through the door like a storm. The panic room closed behind him, but I could still hear faint echoes, gunshots, shouts, muffled explosions. My chest ached with every second that passed. I paced, checked the corners, gripped the gun like it was my lifeline. 8 minutes. 9. 10. No Luca. I tried not to panic, but the longer the silence stretched, the more my mind spiraled. What if they got to him? What if they tricked him? What if... Bang. The panic room door blasted open, smoke curling in the air, and there he was. Luca, covered in blood, some of it his, most of it not, gun in hand, a slash across his arm and fury in his eyes. He staggered in, locked the door behind him and dropped to his knees. Elena, he gasped. I ran to him, dropping the gun, falling to the ground beside him. I'm okay, he rasped. I got them, the ones who planted the bomb. It's done. They sent a message. And you sent one back, I whispered, cradling his blood-slicked face. He gave a grim smile. They know now? You're untouchable. But as I held him, heart pounding, I knew this was far from over. The Santarellis had declared war, and I was no longer the bystander. I was the reason the war mattered. It ended where it all began. In the rain. On the streets. Only this time, I wasn't running. A week after the attack, everything changed. Luca recovered faster than anyone should have, stitched, bandaged, and back on his feet like pain didn't matter. His eyes, though, his eyes weren't the same. Something in him had darkened, hardened in ways I couldn't touch. The Santarellis had crossed a line, and the city was holding its breath. Luca didn't want me there when the retaliation came. He made plans in shadows, spoke in hushed voices behind locked doors. I wasn't supposed to hear anything, but I listened. I watched, and I knew something was coming, something permanent, so I made a choice. That night, I followed him. He didn't see me slip into the black car behind his. He didn't know I was watching from the rooftop across the square when he stepped into enemy territory with nothing but 4 men and a gun holstered beneath his jacket. A peace meeting, they said. But peace wasn't what Luca brought with him. He was a promise wrapped in fury. The Santarellis came armed, smiling with dead eyes and wearing suits soaked in arrogance. They thought they had the upper hand. They thought Luca's obsession with me made him weak. They thought wrong. I watched him walk right into the lion's den, head high, fearless, the storm itself. And then I saw it happen. The ambush. 3 more cars. 15 more men. Automatic rifles drawn. A trap. From the moment he stepped out of that car, he was never meant to leave. I moved before I could think. Down the fire escape. Across the street. Through the back alley. I found Luca behind a broken fence. Gun drawn. Bleeding again. Shoulder this time. He was pressed behind a concrete pillar. His men firing from behind cars. The street was war. Sirens in the distance. Smoke in the air. And still, his eyes widened when he saw me. Elena, what the hell? I slid in beside him, holding out a spare clip I'd taken from his safe. I told you, we fight together. His hand shook as he took it. This isn't your fight, it is now. You made me your one good thing? Then let me be your reason to survive this. His gaze softened, just for a heartbeat. He kissed me there, behind gunfire and chaos, like it was the only thing keeping him alive. Then it happened. The leader of the Santarelli pack stepped forward. Paolo Santarelli himself. Leather gloves. Snake smile. Eyes like ice. He raised his voice, smug and sure. Luca Romano! You're outnumbered. You're bleeding. And you brought your toy with you? Bad move. Luca stepped out from cover, ignoring the gun pointed at his chest. She's not a toy, he said. She's the reason you'll choke on your last breath tonight. Then he looked at me. Just once. And nodded. I didn't hesitate. From behind him, I aimed, breathed, pulled the trigger. My bullet hit Paolo in the throat. His body jerked back, stunned. For a moment, time slowed, and then chaos erupted. Luca surged forward, taking out 2 more men with precise shots. His guards moved like wolves, silent and vicious. One of them tackled a Santarelli into a car windshield. Another dragged a wounded ally to safety. But me? I kept shooting, not wild. Not afraid. I fought like I had something worth bleeding for. It was over in under 3 minutes. Bodies on the pavement. Sirens growing louder. Smoke lifting into the night sky. Luca stood in the middle of it all, chest heaving, blood dripping from his hand. And I stood beside him, breathing just as hard, my gun still warm. He turned to me like he couldn't quite believe I was real. You saved my life. No, I said. We saved each other. We disappeared that night, vanished before the cops arrived. The Romano name took the fall, but not the man. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some said Luca was dead. Others said he was rebuilding from the shadows. But the truth? We left the city behind, a cabin in the hills. No bodyguards, no guns, just us. He still wakes up in the middle of the night sometimes, reaching for me like he's afraid I'll disappear. And every time I take his hand and remind him, I'm still here. He calls me his salvation. But in truth, he was mine. Because love didn't save us. We fought for it. And in the end, that made all the difference. In the end, that made all the difference.